Luis Ortiz will freeze from my punches. My power will send him to a cold shower. Threatens Filip HRGOVIC. He has challenged Luis Ortiz, who won a first phase eliminator against Charles Martin on Saturday. He's challenged the 42-year-old Cuban. As HRGOVIC promoters say, Ortiz has to fight HRGOVIC if he wants to do the final eliminator. This is what the Sounds are saying. Now, Ortiz doesn't have to do anything. American-based boxers, whether they're, on a PBC or Mexican based in America or Eastern European based in America, are under no pressure to take fights no more. They just hide behind the media who are favorable to them and their fanboys who are favorable to them, and they don't worry about anything else. That's what happens over there now. Michael Hunter was ranked above HRGOVIC, if my memory serves correct. He was going to get the lion's share of the $600,000 purse bid, 60-40. He turned it down. Now, Luis Ortiz, I think, will be awarded the higher share of the split if he faces HRGOVIC. I think he will leap HRGOVIC into that number 2 spot that Charles Martin previously occupied. And there's Usyk. Now, if you're just a regular boxing fan who just wants to see competitive fights, don't worry about talking up this fight. Don't waste your breath. This is just the type of fight that the PBC want no part of. They're going to be looking at Eddie Hearn winning a bid, let's say 600,000, same as what Eddie bid for Hunter versus HRGOVIC, 600,000, maybe 7. So it would go on DAZN, and Ortiz's media, guys like Ellaby, the guys on YouTube, they're going to start saying he's the A-side, he earns this much more than HRGOVIC. There's no way he should accept a 600,000 purse bid. Eddie needs to fork out more cash. Now, we've been hearing these arguments and these rebuttals when people propose fights to the PBC. Let me just put this to you, yeah? Don't be wasting your breath. Say this and walk away from it, because there's no point. They're going to try and act like they know the business and it's really technical and it's really complicated, but it's not. It's not. If you don't like the purse from DAZN, you make a counter offer. Just like what Eddie and Dillian are doing with the 80-20 or the 70-30 that Bob Arum and Tyson Fury want to give Dillian White. We're going to go to a purse bid and try and get something more satisfactory. But we'll see how that goes. Because I don't know if DAZN want to overpay Tyson Fury just to get the fight on the DAZN app. I don't know. Dillian can do what he likes, but contrary to what people believe, I don't feel sorry for Dillian if he turns down 20% or 30%. He has a choice. It's as simple as that. If DAZN ain't going to back him, then he's on his own. It's up to him. I hope he takes the fight and knocks Fury out, but if he doesn't take the fight, I ain't going to be like, oh, Dillian, this. No, I won't be doing that. You lose your title opportunity, someone else will take it. So we'll see how that goes. But at the same time, you can't just expect this bottomless pit to keep throwing money at the thing. If you don't like what's on offer, you make a counter offer. But we need to make fights. We need to start making fights across the pond. You can't get more than what the people are bidding for. If they don't think you're worth more than that and we don't see a bigger bid on the table, that's your worth as a pugilist. You might think you're some big global icon, but you're not, obviously. The purse bids are reflecting that. And if your people think that the fight is worth more, they should pitch up the money so they can get it on their network, control the pay-per-view, control the event and the promotion, and they can make all that money that they think the fight is worth. But until then, you know what I mean? Like, the PBC ain't making these counter offers. Oh, it's a slave deal. It's a slave deal. It's not. You see, Luis Ortiz made $500K, and we'll see what upside on the pay-per-view he'll earn. They reckon it could be up to 1.5. That pay-per-view there is a hard sell. Charles Martin, he made $300K, and they reckon pay-per-view earnings could take that up to $750,000. See, the thing is, Filip HRGOVIC is going to make about $200,000 or something like that. But the Sauerlands and Eddie Hearn They have faith in that kid. So although that will be his official purse, they're going to top him up a little more because they're backing him. They're going to really bet on themselves, not some bullshit catchphrase. They're really going to bet on themselves. They'll give him a little something more. I don't know how much. But they're going to bet on this guy to make a splash and knock out Luis Ortiz and make his mark on the big stage. But the PBC witness protection, whether it's the YouTube channels or the more mainstream media or Leonard Ellaby or whoever's talking, they're going to be saying, well, why do we need to fight this guy? Who is he? He's never fought nobody. All which is true. And he doesn't sell. No, he doesn't. He's not a household name in America. No, he's not none of these things. But why are you conning the public taking the first phase eliminator with no intention of taking the final eliminator against HRGOVIC? What's the point of this? Now, I'm jumping the gun because I'm actually seeing ahead of what's going to happen. I bet you any money Luis Ortiz, the boogeyman, doesn't step in the ring with HRGOVIC. I bet you any money. They'd have to be paying him at least $2 million or something like that. But the PBC don't pay him that kind of money. You got a guarantee of $500K. He's relying on pay-per-view receipts to get him up to 1.5 for the Charles Martin fight. Judging by all the empty seats in the arena, they ain't going to do no good pay-per-view numbers. The only hope we have is the fact that they're putting Luis Ortiz as a headline act now, because Wilder's went down, Porter's went down, they gave Canelo all that money, Caleb went down. They might not have no choice right now, because the in-house fights, like the Charles Martin ain't going to budge the needle. Luis Ortiz versus Frank Sanchez ain't going to budge the needle. Like, Andy Ruiz done, what was it, 100,000 against Areola? How much is a fight against Luis Ortiz going to do? It might do okay. It could be a potential popular fight. But they might not have no choice, like send Ortiz out there to the zone like they had to send Porter to ESPN. They might have to start shipping their fighters out to get them work and get them some results to bring back to the PBC so they can build these fighters up again. We might be there right now. And that's not such a bad thing. Due to bad management over there, they've got a lot of dead wood floating about. I mean, Karanaki turned down a huge offer to fight AJ. Huge offer. And then loses twice to Robert Helenius. What are you going to do with him now? What kind of fights can you generate of any interest than financial worth with Karanaki right now? Clock's ticking. HRGOVIC has agreed to take the fight already. Ortiz is 3 days. 3 days. Let's see what the PBC do. Ortiz and his manager, was it DeCubas, said that the $5 million offer to fight AJ was a lowball. Remember that? They wrote themselves out of the sweepstakes and basically got exposed. So what makes you think they're going to fight HRGOVIC when all they practice is risk-reward over there? What makes you think that's going to happen? It's not going to happen. Both Martin and Ortiz, who fought on Saturday, they've already turned down the eliminator against HRGOVIC previously. Last year, I believe. He also turned down a Joe Joyce fight last year. So basically, Al Heyman is waiting to see if he can recycle a Robert Helenius or something like that and put him against Luis Ortiz in a fight for what? What's that going to do? This is not going to get them any closer to a world title fight. And try and put that on pay-per-view. Like, it's ridiculous, really. This is supposed to be the boogeyman. And listen, I blame the sanctioning bodies. The sanctioning bodies need to stop putting people in eliminators who don't want to take their world title shots, putting people in first phase eliminators who don't want to take the second phase fight. They need to stop doing that. They need to get guarantees. Are you going to take the first phase eliminator and fight the second phase? And put it in writing that you're going to do it. Make them commit to fighting their world title shots if they win the eliminator. Why are you giving Charles Martin and Luis Ortiz a first phase eliminator when both of them rejected a fight with HRGOVIC previously? What's the sense in that? It's working backwards. People are talking about, Deontay Wilder's the only guy who stepped up to fight Luis Ortiz when he turned down $5 million to fight AJ because he wanted double that. Tell me when he's got $10 million to fight Deontay Wilder, or $10 million anytime he's fought. Talking about this guy is the most feared contender, they're trying to age him out. No one's trying to age him out. The HRGOVIC fight's there for him right now. The Joe Joyce fight was there for him. The AJ fight was there for him. The Dillian fight was there for him. If you believe that Ortiz has been dodged more than HRGOVIC, then you have the fakest boxing channel ever. It's just totally fake. And it's all about propaganda. Jackanory boxing, basically. Wilder's had 3 fights against Tyson Fury. Couldn't win one of them. And you're reduced to trying to make this Cuban guy something he's not to bolster up Wilder's resume while he's getting beat the fuck up by Tyson Fury. Declining world title fights for Undisputed. Avoiding Dillian White. For how many years? There was one channel who I respected. I did respect them. But when they started talking about his 10 title defenses, not mentioning, yo, you didn't unify one belt in them 10 fights. Throughout your whole career, you've never unified a belt. Then he wanted to talk about AJ hasn't fought anybody. Hold on. AJ's already beat Charles Martin, Vladimir Klitschko, Dillian White. Luis Ortiz is 42. His best wins are Charles Martin and Bryant Jennings. And AJ beat Charles Martin in way better style than Luis Ortiz did. But yet, you're talking up Ortiz and Wilder like what? When AJ's accomplishments shit all over these guys. Yeah, and this ain't because I'm British. These are just the facts. The fight yesterday just exposed that if the PBC were doing even half of the cross-promotion fights that the likes of Eddie Hearn has proposed them to take, they'd be taking L's everywhere. L's everywhere. You wouldn't be calling Luis Ortiz no boogeyman. And Wilder and his power, ooh, you know, like, these British journalists saying, oh, Derek better not fight Deontay Wilder. Why, exactly? Yeah, Wilder can win by knockout, but who's Wilder? Who's Wilder for? Who's he knocked out? He was protected for 30 plus fights before he even fought Malik Scott. He didn't fight a Klitschko for none of his belts or unify against a Klitschko. He's never beat a top Brit, and the Brits have been running the heavyweight division for the last 6 years or so, and he hasn't beat one of the top Brits. But yet he's supposed to be this formidable fighter for his generation. Absolute nonsense. He's never beat a top Eastern European as a pro. The best Eastern European he beat is Lajkovic, who was way past his best. And even in his prime, he wasn't one of the top Eastern European guys who were coming up with the Klitschkos and Shagayev, Abramovich and Maskayev and the rest of them. You know, the American boxers on the PBC, they swerve the WBSS tournaments and talk about how crap the cruiserweight tournament was when Usyk won Undisputed. And the one time when one of your prominent fighters enters the WBSS tournament at cruiser, right, he gets knocked the f*** out. Andrew Tabiti. But let's not go off track, you know what I mean? I was going to go on a whole different rap, but I edited the video at this point here. You know what I mean? I'm just not expecting Luis Ortiz to fight HRGOVIC, and that's going to be a pattern for the PBC fighters as it has been for the last 4 or 5 years. Simple. Pretending they're not getting opportunities when you can document all the opportunities and offers that have been made to a whole lot of their fighters from heavyweight to lightweight, and they haven't took them. And if they didn't like the offers, where's the comeback counter offers? Where are the counter offers? Sick of this shit. Another story concerning ducking and a PBC fighter and a proposed boycott of his fight with UGAS. Now the UGAS fight looks good on paper and it is a good fight. It's a unification. And Al Heyman, you know, he's used his wealth of riches at 147 to escape the likes of Terence Crawford, right? And he thinks he can do this again with this nice unification fight with the Cuban and Errol Spence. But there's going to be a backlash, it looks like, and a potential boycott, where people are going to actively encourage a boycott of the fight. And it's not ideal, because these men are going in the ring, risking their lives. A boycott is not ideal, but if there's any other solution, I'll be all ears to hear it. Now, how effective will a boycott be? Well, if anyone participating in the boycott believes that's going to put Spence in the ring with Crawford, there's a good chance you're fooling yourself. I think it's beyond that now. I think the boycott, in terms of being effective, of making that fight happen, I don't think it will be that effective. But we have to look at the long-term goal of a boycott. Let's start with the boxing fans first. What is the possible motivation for you as a boxing fan, whether you support Errol Spence or Crawford, to want Spence to fight UGAS first, after all the waiting we've done for Spence and Crawford? What could the possible motivation be? Like, if you're a YouTube channel and saying you're promoting boxing, What is it you like about boxing that you don't want to see Crawford fight Spence? Why do you have a channel up there exactly? I'm just interested to know. You don't want to see two African Americans who are considered the best in their weight class in this era and generation. You don't want to see that fight happen. For what reason exactly? For what reason would you try to say Crawford should fight Boots Ennis and Spence should fight UGAS over that? How come you negotiate with Canelo, who's not signed to the PBC, and Tyson Fury is not signed to the PBC, so they can get big money and beat up the PBC fighters, but yet Crawford can't get shit over there?
You getting money, I can't get nothing with you, then fuck ya.
Now apparently Spence and UGAS is going to happen in April. Spence said so himself. And, you know, he's talking about strap season again. But it's never strap season when Terence Crawford's name comes up. You know? Like, if you're a boxing fan or a boxer, what difference does this side of the street politics make to you? Your money is not the same as what is in the boardroom, and your objectives are totally different. Like, you don't care if one pay-per-view sells as long as they pay you your M's. Why do you care? You don't care about the rival network as long as you're getting your money and getting the fights you want. The people in the boardroom might want this side of the street politics. The people in the boardroom might care about the pay-per-view numbers because that's their job, is to provide content to viewers and get high viewing figures and be ahead of their competition. You're not in that process if you're a boxing fan or a fighter. You just want to see the best fight the best, and if you're a boxer, you should want to fight the best and you should want the most money for your fights. You claim you want a bigger split of the purse against Crawford. That means it's all about the money. Well, you get more money for fighting Crawford, so fight Crawford then. Fight Crawford. Even if you give Crawford 40, even if Crawford is allowed 40%, you'll make more fighting Crawford than you will UGAS. So there's no excuses. Strap season. You want to fight UGAS, who's just beat Pacquiao, who ducked Terence Crawford religiously, while it's Crawford who's been stopping all of his opponents since he's been a welterweight champion. When's the last time UGAS, Pacquiao or Spence stopped anybody at 147 in a world title fight? You know, all the common opponents that these guys face, UGAS, Pacquiao or Spence, they take them the distance and Crawford knocks all of them out. Do the research. Pacquiao, outpointed by Jeff Horn, loses his belts in Australia. Crawford knocks Horn out. Sean Porter beats UGAS on points, loses to Spence via split decision. Crawford knocked him out for the first time in his career in 10. Even Kell Brook, who Spence stopped late, Crawford got rid of him in, what was it, 2 rounds? A boycott is bigger than Spence and Crawford. A boycott is against guys like Richard Schaefer saying that, oh, the public don't want to see Crawford and Spence. They want to see Spence and Mikey Garcia telling us what fights we want when they're not the fights we want. You know, to have the audacity to say that and then actually put the fight on, and it's one of the most one-sided fights you could ever see, and even then fucking Spence couldn't get the guy out of there. It's hard to put into words a business strategy like that. The boycott is against this side of the street politics, which Al Heyman, if he's not going to speak, he needs someone to come out and clean up some of the rubbish that his boxers say. The boxers and Leonard Ellaby come out and say a lot of rubbish that is just not going down well with a lot of sides of the media and boxing fans. And there's no one to clean it up at the PBC. You can't sell boxing like that. We're going to do in-house fights and everybody should be happy with it. When you've got how much boxers on your roster? This is what the boycott is about. The boycott will either eventually make the PBC do the right thing by the boxing fans, or maybe they'll just go away and leave boxing alone. And a lot of people feel that wouldn't be a bad thing. A boycott is not ideal. It's not ideal. But it's laying a marker down in the ground, you know, like hot fights will not be hot forever. You got to strike while the iron is hot. A boycott is the result of lessons learned from, you could say Pacquiao and Floyd, but they did fight. But definitely from Joshua and Wilder. We got to avoid repeats of Joshua and Wilder.